If you clicked on this video, there's a good chance that you have a pair of chinos that are too long and you want them to be shorter, right? Yeah, I thought so. I don't like long intros. Let's do this. I've got my chinos inside out as if I was gonna properly wash them, and the very first step that we want to do is, well, we want to identify something. These chinos being 34 inches long means that they are way too long for me. I want them to be 32 inches. I've got my ruler and some Tailors chalk, and I'm gonna measure from the very bottom down here, the very bottom of my chinos, up to 2 inches right there. I'm gonna put a little mark, boop, just like that. And now I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna draw a line all across here. Boom, done. We have to dive in and decipher a couple more things about these chinos too. One being this original hem right down here. This distance between the very bottom of our chinos and this original stitch right here, this is 1 inch. Why is this space right in here important? Well, because you're psychologically predispositioned to notice that distance in there, and if your chinos aren't 1 inch right in there, you're gonna notice it and it's just gonna look weird. What is this distance right in between here? Well, it's about 3/4 of an inch.
And that's not the end of the world, but it's borderline. We don't want our hem to be any smaller than that.
Let's take that hypothetical example that we were talking about before about all this cutting down here, and let's cut this. When you make that first cut, you want to cut just either on or just past that original stitch right there, because we want to keep as much of this fabric in here as we can. When you get to the side seams in here, you want to make sure that you're using proper scissors. You want to use fabric scissors because they're going to be able to cut through this properly without being all janky looking. So don't go in your utility drawer and grab a random pair of scissors for this. This is what we got going on right here. So what's next? Well, we're gonna do all that folding that we talked about. In order to make sure everything is nice and even and straight, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna measure everything to make sure that I didn't mess anything up here. Oop, this is the centimeter side. Use a sewing pin to hold everything in place, but make sure you put your sewing pin as far down towards the new bottom of your chinos as you can. You don't want to put it too far up here. More on that in a second. Switch sides on you. Whoa, SD, what about all this fraying, all this nonsense going on in here? Well, what we're gonna do is we're gonna tuck all of this in, and that's why I said you wanna make sure that your pins are pretty close down to the bottom of the new part of your chinos down here as you can get them. We're gonna tuck this under and we're gonna hold it just like that. That pin's gonna hold it, and then we're gonna find another spot real quick and we're gonna tuck it under just a little bit, not a lot. And we're gonna put another pin right in there, hold its place. Boom! This is essentially the line that we're gonna be sewing that new straight stitch on right here. But remember, we want this to be as close to a full inch as we can get it. So we don't wanna tuck our fabric under too much there, because that will make it about a half an inch and you'll look at it and you'll be like, bruh. All right, we are ready to rock and roll, and it might look like a big kerfuffle of sewing pins right here. I know, it looks kind of intimidating, but don't worry, I'll kind of walk you through this and explain all of this. There's a big gap right here, but that's okay. Again, more on that in a second. Let's go put a new straight stitch on this, shall we?
If you've never used a sewing machine before, don't panic. I made a tutorial on how you can master it in literally 5 minutes. It's in the card above, up there, or up there. I never remember what side.
We're making a straight stitch, and this straight stitch is going to be 1.5 as opposed to 2.5 or 2.5 millimeters, because we want the stitches to be pretty close together. And I'm starting off this straight stitch on one of the seams so that I can make a back stitch and I can hide all the back stitchiness. Take your time and go slow, and look at these sewing pins. See how they're all kind of kerfuffly like, and everything is all bunched up? Well, sewing machine pins aren't necessarily there to look pretty. They're there to hold things in place. What's gonna really give it a nice look is this new straight stitch on here. So don't let all the waviness and all of the wrinkles throw you off. They're just there to hold things in place. That's their only job.
That moment when your sewing machine makes you want to murder someone. Now, the issue that I ran into was on my Brother ST371 HD sewing machine. It uses a specialty bobbin. And that specialty bobbin, it's ever so slightly smaller than other bobbins that you might run into at like Walmart if you get a pack of bobbins, for instance. And well, I decided to not heed that warning of not using alternative bobbins in my machine, and that's the result.
We're back in action, good to go, let's do this. I want to point something out to you. See that line right there? This is my seam plate, and these are my seam guides. I'm lining up the edge of my chinos right with the seam guide right there to make sure that everything is nice and straight. I'm looking at my needle to make sure that everything is still nice and folded in. I'm holding it down right there because I took some of the pins down, so I'm holding that tuck under right there. Tuck under, that's what she said. And then making sure to keep everything lined up right there. So just go slow, take your time. Boom. This is the final finished product, and we have a couple of things to decipher and to unpackage right here, because this right here, this is where our stitch starts off. As you can see, the distance between the bottom of our chinos and our new stitch, it's still in a pretty good spot. I'm really happy with that. It's about 3/4 of an inch, not too big of a deal at all, but full transparency, let me tell you, that bird nesting that was going on my machine absolutely frustrated me. Like, it made me so mad. As it goes along, comes to be a couple of hiccups, and I like to keep these in my tutorials because they might happen to you too. So as it goes along here, totally fine. This is the back end of my stitch because this is where I wrapped around.
Is there a bee in my car? Are you oh my gosh, you serious?
What I want to point out to you is this right here. Look at all of this untucked fabric right here. Look at all that fraying right there. See, it's tucked in right there, and then we start to lose it. It gets up, and then we get it back in. We course correct. When you have a big stretch of fabric like that that's not tucked in, it's tucked in right there in these two spots, so it can only go so far. But then we have this spot right here. That's not very fun either right there. That could happen, and then we lose it again right there. But this wrinkle, well, this is the other side. You'd never know that that's what it looks like on the inside. This is another spot here. This is where we have some more wrinkling going on, and that's not good at all because everything shifted on us, and then we sewed our straight stitch over right over that shifting. On the other side here, a little bit of puckering, but with a good ironing, this will be good to go too. This is the outside here. It needs a really good iron because it's folded over right here, and it just looks really kind of weird.
You ever watch a tutorial and they make it seem really easy and they never warn you about any problems or mishaps that you might run into? It's kind of annoying. It would have been super easy to edit all of this out and start over, and you would have had no idea, but what good does that do? Make it seem like I'm perfect? In the event that you're not happy with the results, just take a seam ripper and take it out and then start over in like 5 minutes. It's super easy to do.
But that being said, all in all, I'm really happy with these. I'm gonna wear them. The straight stitch is nice and perfectly straight because we were following along on our seam guide, and yeah, we are good to go. It's summertime, it's hot outside. Let's go pair these chinos with a dress shirt where we cut off the sleeves to make it short sleeve. Huh? Yeah, let's do that. It's in the end card. I'll see you on the other side. SD out. Deuces.